For 7 years, a horrifying secret was kept inside a London home. To investigators, the case of missing 27-year-old Surjeet Athwal had gone cold. She had, in their words, vanished off the surface of the earth. But one woman knew the truth. She knew Surjeet wasn't just missing, she had been murdered by her own family. This is the story of how one woman's courage exposed a plot orchestrated from thousands of miles away. It is a story of absolute betrayal, and of a concept so twisted it could turn a mother into a killer. Surjeet Kaur Athwal was born in Coventry, England. While Surjeet embraced the freedoms of a modern British woman, her life at home was governed by a much stricter set of rules. At just 16 years old, she was placed in an arranged marriage with Sukhdave Singh Athwal, a man 10 years her senior. The marriage meant moving into the Athwal family house in West London, a home ruled by its matriarch, Bachan Kaur Athwal. To the outside world, it was a respectable family home. But inside, it was a place of oppression and abuse. Bachan Kaur was a domineering figure who controlled every aspect of family life. Surjeet was expected to be a traditional, dutiful wife, but she had a spirit that refused to be broken. She found a job as a customs officer at Heathrow Airport, giving her a small taste of the independence she craved. She started wearing Western clothes and building a life for herself outside the suffocating walls of her marriage. These small acts of freedom were seen as rebellion. Her desire for a normal life was interpreted as defiance. By 1998, after a decade in an abusive marriage, the now 27-year-old Surjeet had enough. She was a mother of 2 young children, but she knew she couldn't stay. She filed for divorce and had found a new partner, ready to start over. To her mother-in-law, Bachan Kaur, this was the ultimate shame. A family meeting was called. It wasn't a discussion, it was a declaration. In front of her family, the 70-year-old matriarch announced her chilling plan. She was going to get rid of Surjeet. But to do it, she needed Surjeet to cooperate. So, she presented a cruel deception as a peace offering. She told Surjeet the family would grant her the divorce, but only if she accompanied her on a trip to India for 2 family weddings. It was framed as a final duty. Surjeet, believing this was her only path to freedom, agreed. She thought it was a negotiation. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a death sentence. On 4th December 1998, Surjeet and her mother-in-law, Bachan Kaur, flew from London to Delhi. She attended the weddings in Punjab, fulfilling her side of the twisted bargain. As her return date neared, Surjeet grew anxious. Her scheduled flight was on 18th December. For her family back in England, it was a day they awaited with cautious hope. But the day came and went. Surjeet never came home. Back in London, the Athwal family's story was ready. When Surjeet's worried parents asked where she was, Bachan Kaur and Sukhdave claimed Surjeet had run off with a lover in India, abandoning her children. It was a narrative of shame, designed to deflect all suspicion. The deception was meticulously planned. The very day Surjeet flew to India, her husband Sukhdave had taken out a life insurance policy on her. In her absence, he quickly filed for divorce, claiming desertion. There were forged letters, supposedly from Surjeet, to mislead police. There were forged documents, transferring Surjeet's share of the family home into their names. To the outside world, it was the story of a runaway wife. Inside the family, it was the calculated cover-up of a murder. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. Surjeet's devastated parents pleaded for a serious investigation, but their pleas were met with years of frustration. With no body, no crime scene, and a family united in their story, the case grew cold. It seemed to be the perfect crime. But the family had made one critical mistake. They assumed everyone inside their walls was united. They were wrong. Inside the Athwal house, another daughter-in-law, Sarbjit Athwal, lived in terror. She had been friends with Surjeet, and she knew Surjeet would never abandon her children. She knew something terrible had happened. Her fears were confirmed when Bachan Kaur returned from India, alone. In a moment of chilling pride, the matriarch sat Sarbjit down and confessed everything. She boasted about how flawlessly her plan had been executed. She detailed how Surjeet was taken to a remote location, drugged, and then strangled to death by her brother. She described how Surjeet's body was then thrown into the Ravi River, gone forever. The confession was not delivered with remorse. It was delivered with pride, as a righteous defense of the family's honor. And then, the pride turned into a threat. Bachan Kaur warned Sarbjit directly. If she ever stepped out of line, she would meet the same fate. For Sarbjit, it was the start of a 7-year nightmare. She was trapped in the same house as her sister-in-law's killers, holding a secret that could get her and her own children killed. Despite the terror, she had already tried to raise the alarm, sending an anonymous letter to her local police station when Surjeet first failed to return. But with no evidence, her warnings went nowhere. Now she had the full, horrifying truth, but speaking it aloud could cost her everything. For years, the wall of silence seemed unbreakable. In May 2000, police arrested Bachan Kaur and Sukhdave on suspicion of conspiracy to murder, but without a body or a witness, they were released without charge. The case went cold. But Sarbjit Athwal never gave up. After years of living under threat, she finally managed to separate from her husband. Free from the immediate control of the Athwal family, she walked into a police station in 2005, ready to tell them everything. Her testimony was the key. The case was handed to Detective Chief Inspector Clive Driscoll of the Metropolitan Police. DCI Driscoll was now faced with proving a murder that happened 7 years prior, in another country, with no body. As his team began to investigate, they listened to Sarbjit's harrowing account. She recounted the family meeting where the murder was announced. She described the chilling confession. Her testimony was the foundation, but Driscoll knew it had to be corroborated with evidence. Investigators were sent to India. They uncovered the trail of forged documents. They found the life insurance policy taken out by Sukhdave. The meticulous lies began to fall apart. Sarbjit's decision to come forward was fraught with peril. She became the first person in a British honor-killing trial to agree to testify in open court against her own family, waiving her right to anonymity. Her bravery was the linchpin of the entire case. Sarbjit gave a vivid account of how Surjeet was tricked, driven to a remote location, strangled, and thrown into the Ravi River. This wasn't a fantasy, it was a horrifying reality. In 2007, 9 years after Surjeet was murdered, Bachan Kaur and Sukhdave Athwal stood trial at the Old Bailey in London. It was a landmark case, one of the first times a British court had prosecuted an honor-killing planned in the UK but carried out abroad. The prosecution's case rested almost entirely on Sarbjit Athwal's powerful testimony. In the courtroom, she faced her former family and told the jury everything. The defense tried to paint her as a vengeful liar, but the evidence gathered by the police corroborated every part of her story. The jury saw through the lies. They found both Bachan Kaur Athwal and Sukhdave Athwal guilty of murder. During sentencing, the judge described the murder as a heinous crime characterized by great wickedness. He told them, "You did it because you thought she had brought shame on your family." Bachan Kaur was sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in prison, later reduced to 15 on appeal. Sukhdave received a life sentence with a minimum of 27 years, later reduced to 20. The men who carried out the murder in India have never faced justice. In August 2022, after serving 16 years, Bachan Kaur Athwal was released from prison on compassionate grounds. The parole board cited her old age and dementia. She was released back into the care of her family, the very institution she had corrupted in the name of honor. For Surjeet's family, It was a painful blow. But Sarbjit Athwal's work was not finished. Having risked everything, she dedicated her life to helping others, founding the charity True Honor to raise awareness about honor-based violence and forced marriage. She transformed herself from a silenced victim into a powerful advocate for the voiceless. The case of Surjeet Athwal remains a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of honor-based violence. It's the story of a young woman who wanted nothing more than the freedom to live her own life. But it is also the story of Sarbjit Athwal's immense courage. Surjeet's body was never recovered from the Ravi River. But her memory lives on, not as a victim, but as a symbol in the fight for justice. Her story, and the courage of the woman who told it, continues to ensure that her life was not lost in vain. Honor-based violence continues to be a hidden crime in communities around the world. Charities like True Honor, founded by Sarbjit Athwal, provide vital support to victims. If you'd like to see more in-depth explorations of complex cases, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching.